Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word and to some race reaction for the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Oh, Jesus Christ. First things first, if you're watching this live, apologies if you've been waiting about an hour. I did schedule the stream for 9:15, but every time I came back, YouTube had altered it to 8:15, so apologies. So I've gone live as soon as I noticed that, so again, apologies, but these things happen when it comes to the internet, and usually when there's a nice dramatic race to go over. Yeah, I don't really know what to say. Well, I wanted to say something clever at the start of a stream, which I know would be a first, but I'm a little bit frustrated. I think Formula One bills itself as the pinnacle of motorsport. It really thrives on that saying that they come out with. We all do it. We all call it the pinnacle of motorsport, but today it felt like an absolute farce. That whole thing was such a mess from start to finish, really. Very disappointed. Obviously, the track action, we'll get to that in a moment, but just the handling of things from Michael Massey in particular. He did not sound like a man that was in control. He sounded completely out of his depth. Sorry to go straight in on the negative, but it's just how I feel with that one. Just sounded completely out of his depth. Not in control of things. It felt like Red Bull and Mercedes were making the decisions and bossing it all, and he was just sat there. I don't know. It just was an absolute shit show, quite frankly. But But it is what it is. I've got Dan with me tonight. Let's have a look at the results in case you haven't seen it already. This is, and I cannot stress this enough, this is a provisional race result. So at time of streaming, if you're watching this later, Lewis Hamilton is the winner of the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix with Max Verstappen in second place and Valtteri Bottas third. Verstappen, I believe, is with the stewards at the moment for that incident. I don't know what to call it. Lewis Hamilton says brake checking incident. Max Verstappen says trying to let Hamilton through incident. Whatever. Esteban Ocon, bless him, so close to another podium. P4 pipped on the line by Valtteri Bottas. Daniel Ricciardo 5th. Pierre Gasly 6th. Carlos Leclerc, Charles Leclerc in 7th, Carlos Sainz 8th, it's Antonio Giovinazzi 9th, Lando Norris in 10th, Lance Stroll in 11th. I'm coming to you, Charles, don't worry. Latifi in 12th, it's 13th for Alonso, 14th for Tsunoda, 15th for Raikkonen, and your retirements list is Sebastian Vettel, Sergio Perez, Nikita Mazepin, George Russell, and Mick Schumacher. I'm going to come to you in a second for the first few super chats, but I'm just going to go straight into this. I feel all over the place. Good evening, Dan, mate. Last week you said to me you were really worried about this one. It was going to be a bit boring. How'd you feel? How's that aged?
I think I was right. I don't think there's much to talk about today. I think we might struggle. To be honest, mate, I don't think I've ever come away from an F1 race with a headache. Like I feel like everyone's the same on that one. What on earth have we just seen?
Well, and also do you kind of feel like the previous 21 races were completely pointless? Because
oh yeah,
we're going to the final race now and it's all level anyway. I'm absolutely baffled. I'm with you. I started making notes as I always do, and I just threw them over my shoulder after about the second red flag, and I thought we'll just wing it tonight because I just don't know how to sum that up. I mean, let's start with the obvious, and that is the top two. Really no way to go with it. Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. It was all looking, for the first little stint of the race, Dan, rather good for Mercedes. Got a great start. Hamilton leading, Bottas second, all nice and in control. And then it just all, thanks to Mick Schumacher, by the way, this is all his fault. Mick Schumacher in the wall. We got a safety car. Mercedes decided to pit their drivers, which made sense. Then they put out a red flag. Verstappen had stayed out. That annoyed people because Verstappen could change his tyres. By the way, it really bugs me that people get angry when Hamilton or Verstappen change their tyres under a red flag, but nobody cares when Latifi and Mazepin do it. But whatever, it's the same rule for everybody under the same circumstances, so that's just what it is. It's a rule. You don't have to like it. It just is what it is. And then we get a second restart, or a first restart, a second start if you like. That all goes chaotic in turn one between Hamilton and Verstappen, and all hell breaks loose. I mean, I guess that's where we're starting. Dan Stewart's decided 5-second penalty. What was your take on that restart between Hamilton and Verstappen? Verstappen, of course, outside. Was that the restart? I'm sure it was a restart. I don't even know anymore, Dan.
It's all a bit of a blur, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. I've always been very clear that I'm not a fan of the pushing off track. It's something I've never enjoyed, and all season long I've stuck to that, whether it was Imola, whether it was Spain, Monza, Brazil. I don't think many people are a fan of, and it's not just a thing against Verstappen. I always used to berate Kevin Magnussen with it. Bless him. I brought him up already. So the fact it's happened again today, I'm not changing my tune. I'm not a fan of it. And I would agree with the 5-second penalty. I mean, this is all going to be a bit of a mess all the way through this evening with how many restarts there were, how many incidents there were. It just seemed to lose control. But when you even consider last couple of races ago in Brazil, no penalty for that, and penalty for this, straight away you're seeing there's no consistency. And not only is that a theme throughout the season, I feel like today, just throughout the race, there was no consistency. And Max definitely pushed Lewis wide. We're on about the penalty where Hamilton tried to go around the outside, yeah?
Yeah. Verstappen sort of on the inside, and then he goes, I think, and then he ends up across the track at turn one. I mean, the official decision was leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Stewart review video, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it was quite cut and dry, I think. My initial reaction to it was, well, that's a penalty, or he's got to give the position back, or it's a penalty. As it turns out, he was going to give the position back, and that all went to shit, basically, didn't it?
Yeah, well, exactly. And also, don't forget, he got the penalty for pushing, again, Hamilton wide. Well, the opposite to wide, going off the track and pushing Hamilton when he came back on that restart. when Ocon took P2, and there was the whole mess about what kind of penalty he was getting for that. So pushing people wide, I'm not a fan of, and I think they had a great chance to set a precedent today, like they've had all season long, and once again, they've not done it. And you're right, then without those dramas being just left, and we can continue on with a great race, a great fight between these two championship rivals, it just got even more messy. And whereas earlier on in the race, we had Massey just seemingly not making his mind up on whether he was going to give a penalty, whether he was going to take it to the stewards. It seemed like the decision whether Max should let him pass until he eventually tried, and we'll talk about that in a moment. It seemed like that even seemed like chaos. It seemed like Red Bull didn't know whether they were supposed to be letting him pass. They didn't know whether they'd get a penalty. Mercedes didn't know whether they were expecting Max to slow down. No one knew what was going on. And if the race director doesn't know what's going on, how on earth is anyone else supposed to know?
I mean, with that incident they've given a penalty for, I thought, like I say, first look at that when it was live, I was like, that's a penalty. That, he's forced him off. They've both ended up off track, and he's kept that position. But when I watched replays, Dan, I don't know how you felt about this. I'm just kind of playing a little bit devil's advocate. But the more I watch the replays, the more I think, well, it's not quite Brazil, because they are definitely more level. In fact, you could argue Verstappen is marginally ahead going into that corner. In fact, many people will argue that. I'm sure Red Bull certainly will. And it's not as cut and dry as the Brazil one for me, which is weird. I first reaction, but sometimes you do in the heat of the moment, like that's a penalty. But the more you watch, you think, well, you can, Hamilton has gone in a little bit deeper than perhaps he would have normally done as well, and maybe there is a squeeze there, and definitely Verstappen gets off the brake to carry some more speed in. It's not one of those 6 of one, half a dozen of the other situations, but it's not as slam dunk as my initial reaction was to that. But I just, on the other incident, which I think is the one we need to be talking about more, because that, whatever we think of that, that's decided now. The stewards have done with that one. What they are doing now is they're investigating what Lewis Hamilton is calling brake checking, and what I guess you could say Verstappen is calling the trying to let Lewis Hamilton through incident. They're investigating that at the moment. That looked, again, initial reaction, you're like, oh, that's a bit cheeky from Max, but there's a shot of it from the helicopter. Obviously above the drivers. Helicopters tend to be in the air, if you didn't know. I don't know why I had to just clarify that moment, but it was above the drivers. And there is a lot of space to Max Verstappen's left. There is movement there, and Max does seem to slow down maybe more than he needs to. But what I'm reluctant to point the finger at either driver, because it sounds as though Max has been told to let Hamilton through, and Hamilton hasn't been told, or Mercedes haven't been told that that's happening until almost the point that it's too late. So what this boils down to me, and this is what my frustration is with this race, and this whole weekend actually, not just this race, this whole weekend through F2 as well, is I can only assume Michael Massey went out Thursday night and got a little bit drunk and hasn't recovered from that, because he just did not seem like a man in control, and the communication was shocking today. And they were getting sassy with each other over the radio, sassy Massey like he does. Excuse me, I told you. No, you didn't tell us until we're basically already in the back of him. And I just can't understand how a man that is supposed to be the race director directing the race, I know there's a lot going on, and I'd hate that job. I would not want his job, but I'm not convinced he wanted his job tonight. I think that was absolutely shocking from him, and that's why I'm looking forward to seeing whatever this decision is. As a neutral, I really hope this does not come back with a penalty for Verstappen, because I think we have been set up beautifully for next weekend. And I don't necessarily think that's Verstappen's fault. I don't see anything in that. He is, and Hamilton fans won't like it, but tough, it's my opinion. He's backing off. He's probably slowing more than he should. But if Hamilton's not been told that Verstappen's going to let him through, if you're Lewis Hamilton, do you want to pull alongside your title rival when he's suddenly slowed down randomly in the middle of the track to you? No, you don't, do you? You're not going to do that. You don't know what he's going to do if you don't understand the situation. So for me, that incident comes down to FIA communications and incompetence with that. That's my take on that. I'm not gonna. I always give Massey a hard time, but I think today he deserves all the stick he gets. I know I get stick for giving him stick, but I think he deserves it tonight. I think it was farcical, Dan. I cannot remember a race this crazy when it comes to not only what was happening on track, but with stewarding decisions and what was going on with the race director. He just didn't seem to want to put anything to the stewards, did he?
No, and every comment on Massey there, I agree with, and I think even though I mean some of those decisions that we're talking about there are pretty huge, and whatever comes on with Hamilton and Max from now on is going to be a huge decision either way that goes. But even small decisions, like Stroll earlier on in the race with George Russell, will be investigated after the race. We had virtual safety cars that seemed to take half an hour to come out. We had a red flag that wasn't decided for 5 or 6 laps. And it just seemed like everything that happened today was either the wrong decision or delayed or just that. I think the word farcical, like you mentioned, is pretty much bang on. It was just not cut and dry and clean as it should be. I really can't excuse it at this point. And I have defended Massey. We both have. I feel we've both been on these streams all year long, as well as the other guys. And we've defended decisions from Massey. We've been critical, but we've defended him. And I'm really, really struggling to do that today. I can't deny. I think I'm a little bit different on my take with the Max and Hamilton incident. Not too different. And I do think the telemetry will tell all. Do I think he's brake tested? No, I don't. He's obviously slowed down, but he's slowing down to let him through. Back in 2017 Baku, when Seb thought Hamilton slowed down on the onboard, it looked like he did. But when you see the telemetry, different story. And I think that may play out in a very similar manner today. I do think Max could have left more room, if I'm fully honest. I think you're right. There was enough room for a car on the left. But if you're planning on letting a car through, either, for me, A, pull right across to one side of the track, because, like you mentioned, Hamilton's probably thinking, well, there is enough room. He's slowing down, but he's a little bit towards the middle. What's going on? I'll just be cautious. So I get that. But also, I just think it was a bit of a strange spot to let him through. I know there's this talk now of whether both drivers were waiting for DRS, and look, they're fighting for a world title. I'm sure that was on both of their minds, whether they want to admit it or not. But if you're trying to let a driver through, do it in a safe place. We're one corner away from the start-finish straight. Do it there. Let's not have all these dramas. Let's not run the risk of both of them crashing out. And that's exactly what happened. It shouldn't have been that messy for something that all you're doing is letting a driver through and then getting back onto racing, because both of them had the pace. Both of them were in a position where they could fight for the victory. And we did see that today. We saw Hamilton closing in those the last two sectors, but that first sector, Max was so quick. There was no need for all the messing, all of the pushing off, and the eventual contact between the two of them. But again, though I think Max could have been more helpful, I also think Lewis could have been more helpful. But my overall thinking is the telemetry is going to tell us the best story on whether Max has slowed down or not, or whether, hey, let's just leave it as it is.
People saying in chat that the telemetry and the data is already on Reddit, and that is saying that there was no brake check, which is I don't think it is. And just to clarify, a couple of people in chat, or at least one person I saw, saying, why is it Max's fault? Massey. I said Massey. I know my accent's dreadful. Absolutely dreadful, but I said Massey, not Max's. That is Massey's fault, or whoever's communicating to the teams. Because that, if that telemetry is correct on Reddit, I'm not questioning that. I've not seen it, so I'm just going to have to go with what's said in chat. If that is the case, then he's not brake checked him. That's not a penalty. Like I say, it comes down to communication. The FIA should have made sure. I mean, look, it's hindsight. It's how I would do it. I would have said to Mercedes, we're going to ask Max to give the position back. Then I'd have said to Red Bull, give the position back. Then at least Hamilton knows if Max suddenly slows in front of him, he's giving the position back. I don't think that's all that complicated. I know Massey had a lot going on, but how many times are we going to say, well, it's a tough job. Massey had a lot going on. Don't remember any of this with Charlie at all. And he was one man. And maybe that's part of the problem. Right. Maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe there are too many people now making the decisions. Or maybe Massey just isn't what Charlie was. And also, don't forget, the sport's changed so much over the years. So is it too much for one man to be doing that as a race director? That just felt like it today, and it's not just today. There's been some questionable decisions. So let's do some super chats. Got loads coming in. I'm sure I was going to want to say thank you to Charles Edward Cheese, who I think has spread his usual $500 over 4 super chats. Thank you very much, mate. Says greetings, Sean and community. I rescind the bets I made during the Qatar live stream. Haas may well score a single point next year, and I shall not be obliged to pay. Apologies. Sober minds. Suffering Addict, thank you very much. Said, I said it before. I said it again. No matter the drama along the way, it was also obvious that we're going to get another Merc Hamilton double championship. Would have been a hell of a race if McLaren suddenly won the lot. Again from Charles. That said, Hammy does it again. I mean, Jesus, Still I Rise is the absolute perfect theme for this man. Also, Man's theme song is clearly I'm Different. Bitch, I'm different, I think that is. You make your own look. Stick Max in the bin. Booze well deserved. Driver of the day. Let's have a look. Charles Edwards again. Shout out to Valtteri Bottas 77. He's back from the black hole and the bin. He had a rough old weekend not long ago, didn't he? On to the sudden death round. Best place to take all, baby. So excited, I'm shaking. Hi, John T. Dan, Stuart Little. Please tell me you went back to the hair. No. Charles, P.S. The wing that did. Are you drinking already, Charles? This is terrible, mate. Another one says, you got this, I think that is. So thank you very much, mate. Also to Quint, who says Lewis getting very lucky again with no penalties so far. If he gets a reprimand for the lap 39 incident, he will get a 10th-place penalty next race. Didn't realise he was at that point. I might have to just clarify that, but if that's true, that is a very important thing to keep an eye out for. Suffering Addicts, Hamilton and Verstappen really should be ashamed of themselves today. Hamilton drove Verstappen off the track and twice rammed into him, and Verstappen was way too aggressive. Gingerfest, what if Max had a breakdown? Hamilton would have had to be wouldn't have had time to be told. Would it be okay for Hamilton to hit a broken car? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, if it was Max's car breaking down, Hamilton is the back of him, that's not Max's fault either. This is a communication issue. And Jonathan O'Keefe, thank you, mates. As in recognition of the sterling work of Sean, Dan and the Mods tonight, and also Esteplan Ocon for driver of the day, an oasis of calm amidst the headless chickens. We will get to the positives, hopefully, at some point in the stream. Thank you for your super chats. I will try to get to normal chat, but if you've got a burning question or something you're desperate to send us, then super chats are the guaranteed way. But like I say, I don't usually ask. I try to come to everybody or as many people as possible. But yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say about it all. We'll keep an eye on the FIA and see what their decision is. I don't think it's a brake check. I've not seen the data on Reddit, but I don't think it's a brake test at all. I just don't believe that. People will say Max Verstappen's a dirty driver, but I don't even think he'd do that even if he was a dirty driver. I don't think Lewis Hamilton would do that in that situation, and people accuse him of being a dirty driver. I just don't think either driver would do that at all. I really genuinely don't, even with the pressure on. But I think a lot of today, particularly at that restart that we touched on earlier, I think a lot of today, you've got two drivers under massive pressure going for this world title, Dan, and they were both getting riled up behind that on the way to the grid, weren't they, for the restart? And I think you've got two drivers who are a little bit riled up, who are under massive pressure, who know how much this means to their careers, to their teams, to their fans, to themselves, probably more importantly. They're not going to give an inch, and they both want to get their elbows out. Contact is inevitable. It's just so long as that contact is fair, if that makes sense. Like I say, if it's 6-1, half a dozen the other, Hamilton gives him a shove and Verstappen gives him a shove back and vice versa, then you sort of think, well, fair enough. You give as good as you get. But I just keep looking at chat and seeing people getting angry about the whole thing. I totally get it. If you're a Verstappen fan, you're going to be pissed today. If you're a Hamilton fan, you're going to be pissed today, despite the fact he won the race. It'll be interesting to see what they say. But yeah, I just don't think it's there's anything in that. I reckon the stewards will just say Verstappen was told to let Hamilton through and Hamilton wasn't told till it was too late. I can't see how they can blame that on Verstappen unless the telemetry that people are saying is on Reddit is wrong, and Verstappen slammed the brakes on, but he didn't look like he slammed the brakes on.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. And again, I think that telemetry will be all telling. If it is a slam dunk that he says he has, then I would be quite worried because that is going to end up in quite a serious penalty, I would assume. But you'd be able to see it a lot clearer on the onboards if it was a slam dunk. You would really be able to hear the deceleration in the onboard of Max. You'd be able to see it much clearer with Hamilton. And also, I think if he'd have really, really tried, it'd have been a lot more damage. It would have been a much bigger crash. So yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think most people would agree. I mean, the whole incident is silly. Everyone can agree with that. But if there was just clearer communication, this all could have been avoided. And I think the FIA are going to have to look at themselves, look at Massey, look at the whole structure of how they deal with those kind of incidents, because today that's really not a good look for the sport, however this ends.
On the positive, though, we go to Abu Dhabi level on points, and I think we were talking after the stream, weren't we, last week? I think that was our dream scenario from this weekend, wasn't it? Level on points for Abu Dhabi. I mean, that is as spicy as it's going to get. Let me know in chat which way you think it's going to go, Verstappen, Hamilton in Abu Dhabi. I mean, I can't call it because, I mean, I didn't like Sky, by the way. I know they've got to ask the question, but they were poking the idea that, you know, if Verstappen takes out Hamilton when they're side by side, he's world champion, whatever happens. I don't think Verstappen's going to do that. I don't think Red Bull will do that. I think they'll want it fair and square without any question marks. But I'm really struggling to call it. I think the momentum's with Hamilton. I think on paper, even with the changes, the track should still suit Mercedes. But this track was supposed to suit Mercedes as well, and Verstappen, for one reason or another, very nearly bloody nicked it. So I think it's anyone's game. I really, really do. And I think it's the most excited I've been for a world championship since 2012. I think before that, you're looking at, I mean, I think 2010 was pretty special, 2009, but I think this is one of the best I've seen. I mean, I didn't start watching till 1992, so I just missed out on the Senna versus Prost stuff, or the peak of that anyway. But I think this is one of the best I've seen in real time. And there may be some recency bias there, Dan, I don't know, but it just feels like this season has had absolutely everything. We've had some fantastic races, some brilliant overtaking. We've seen some brilliant battles. We've seen some battles that are over the line, some overtakes that are over the line. We've seen collisions. We've seen controversy. We've seen stewards jumping in left, right and centre, threats of court. We've all off track. It's been so catty as well. It's been a classic F1 season, but I think this has been absolutely phenomenal. So whichever way it goes in Abu Dhabi, I think both drivers, ready for sure to annoy each fan base at the same time, both drivers thoroughly deserve it. Whoever comes out on top deserves the world championship, as is generally the case through any sport. If you come out on top, it's because you've beaten 19 other drivers and you deserve it. So bring it on for Abu Dhabi. You know, I'll keep an eye on that decision and we'll talk about it when it comes through. But bloody hell, mate, I can't wait for next Sunday. I'm grinning just thinking about it. I would not want to be a Verstappen or Hamilton fan tonight, and I can tell you that from experience from when I was a Schumacher fan. Bloody awful, these title deciders as a fan.
I mean, as a Grosjean fan, I wouldn't mind.
That was never an
if he
issue,
was in a title fight. Yeah, we never quite got to the victory, so a title's a bit far off. But you bang on. I mean, what a year this has been. Two drivers at the peak of their powers. Max starting to enter his prime. Lewis still in it at the end, but I would still say in his prime. Both of them pushing each other to new levels and barely any mistakes all year long. I mean, yesterday in qualifying, that ridiculously good lap up until the final corner from Max Verstappen. Hamilton, who at parts of the season didn't have as good a car, has kept his nose in it, but he's made mistakes in Imola. Was that mistake? They've come together twice, which I still believe both were racing incidents in Silverstone and Monza. It's just been absolutely everything. And though we've had an Ocon win, a Ricciardo win, Perez and Bottas, just the consistency of these two boys to be getting 1-2s almost every single weekend. I think it's 17 victories between the pair of them in two cars from two different teams with two completely different workforces to come down to the last race on the same amount of points, to be separated by one victory. That's just ridiculous. That is so impressive. I'm not making an age joke here, buddy, though it's going to sound like it, but I know for me, this is definitely one of the best championships I've witnessed. And I started watching in 2006, but I was only a little boy for most of those that were actually half decent. And the only season I can really compare this to is 2016. And that was two teammates going at it. Rosberg went into that last race with a comfortable lead. I've never really witnessed a season like this where I've been fully engrossed every single race, every twist and turn through the championship. And you're right, it's impossible to call. We're going to a track which, yes, on paper, maybe should suit that Mercedes. And if you look at the last few races at this circuit over the last few years, Mercedes have been the team to beat. But last year they weren't. Last year, Red Bull really upset the status quo. And in a season where that Mercedes car was so quick, on a track that Mercedes should have won, Verstappen won. We've also got the changes to the track, which are quite substantial. Sector 3 and Sector 1 are going to be completely brand new. There's going to be no real data from the teams from previous races on how they need to set their cars up for those particular sectors. And we've seen this year, we've gone to tracks like Brazil, which you should say, yeah, Red Bull, they should be pretty good there. And hey, we show up and Mercedes are on it. It's impossible to call. And I don't think it matters who you support, what side of the coin you're on. I think everyone is so excited for next weekend.
John Doe says, I've just completely missed it. There it is. What happens if they both crash next race? Who wins? It'll be Verstappen, who is crowned world champion, on virtue of having more race wins. He'd win on countback. Trying to think, Dan, of the last time we went into a world championship finale when the driver who finished in front, assuming of course in the points, will be world champion. I'm just trying to think. Chat will get there before my brain works it out because I'm going to do it live. Oh no. It won't be 2016. It's not going to be 2013, 12, 10, no. 9, no. I mean, I know 97 was. Whoever finishes in front wins. There's 1 point between Villeneuve and Schumacher. As we know, Villeneuve cheated his way to that one. I'm joking. 2007 is a good shout from Nevit. But definitely 97 was. I know 97 was. It would have been 2007 Kimi, wouldn't it? That was close to that. That was won by a point. Double points in 2014. Possibly could play a part in that one. I'll go through and have a proper look at some point, but I might have a look before Thursday for the preview. But it's really gonna come down to whoever finishes in front, assuming it's points. But if neither score, then Verstappen is world champion. Emily says weed fund because we all need some after that. I don't know what that is, Emily. I assume that's something to do with gardening. Raz says, let's be real here. Plenty of tinfoil hats saying Lewis hit Max on purpose. What benefit would Lewis have if he DNF'd a race he needed to finish to stay in the fight? Telemetry and cameras will tell the story. I think, to be honest, Raz, both were deliberate in the sense that they don't want to give an inch. But I don't think either would necessarily dirty in some ways the more you watch the replays. Maybe some borderline driving from both of them at times this season. Absolutely some borderline driving from both of them at times this season. But it's a good point, actually. Hamilton gains nothing if he crashes out, does he? He had to win today, or at least outscore Verstappen. He had to do that today, so didn't really gain anything, really. Suffering Addict said, should Hamilton have left 10 car lengths on the formation? This is a bit of a complicated one from what I understand. So under a safety car, you have to stay within 10 car lengths of the safety car, but it was a formation. I don't know. It's a formation lap or it's a safety car thing, or I think it's a different rule when they're going to the grid after red flag. So I think that's why that's worked out. I've not seen any kind of investigation or anything into that, so there's not an official line. I will have a look through the regs though at some point. Robbie Baker says, why is Lewis not being talked about for being penalised? Hamilton hit Verstappen and caused serious damage. Surely that is causing a collision. As I said, Robbie, for me, it's the communication. Hamilton didn't know what Verstappen was doing. Verstappen knew he was trying to let Hamilton through, but Hamilton wasn't aware, so he's gone into the back of him. If I were in Hamilton's position in that place, I would not want to pull alongside my title rival when he's slowing suddenly in the middle of the track because I don't know what he's doing. That's how I view that one. I don't think either should be penalised for that. So. And Raz again says, Red Bull Racing's tactics with Horner at the helm serve as a double-edged sword. On one end, it has elevated Max into greatness. On the other end, it has painted Max as a dirtier than average race driver. So thank you for your super chats. I'll keep coming to them. I'll come to you in chat as well very, very shortly. In fact, I'll just have a quick scroll through some of the years you're putting through forward. Don't forget to drop a like as well. This will be all over the place. If you don't like streams that aren't very organised, I'm so sorry. But if you don't like streams that are organised, you certainly didn't enjoy that race because that was chaos. Please do drop a like. Let's try and get that to 500 for Charles again today. He takes a shot for every... Was it 50 or 100, Charles? But I reckon you should do a shot for every 10 tonight because it was just that kind of race. You probably need it. So please do drop a like. Always appreciated. Nearly at 400 already. So that is great stuff. Thank you very much to everybody. Is there anything else you want to say about this, Dan? The reason I want to move on from it is because we've been going on this one for 37 minutes. And I have a feeling we're going to be back to this very shortly when the FIA make a decision. So is there anything you want to add at this stage? Remember, this is a reaction, not a review. And then we'll move on to some positives in the rest of the field and then come back to it later.
I'll leave it. I think you're right. That decision is going to be all telling, and if it does arrive sometime soon, it's gonna kick off. So yeah, let's just save it for that.
I think so. And don't forget as well, there will be a chance a little bit later to drop some questions to us. So if we've missed anything with these top two that you really want us to talk about, then drop us a question there and I will get to that. We've got to talk about Bottas and Perez as well. It's not just those two. I know it's all about Hamilton and Verstappen at the moment, but there are, 18 other drivers on the grid. Bottas and Perez. Bottas, he took the podium off. He took the second place off Stroll on the line in Baku in 2017. He broke Ocon's heart today. A tenth of a second between them over the line, Dan. I mean, Bottas, I'm happy for him. I'm glad he's on that podium, and I think it's great for Mercedes, obviously in the constructors. But I'm really gutted for Ocon because I feel like that podium. He's had a win this season. A podium was a podium for Alonso last time out as well. I think he maybe got a bit lucky with some of the chaos, which enabled him to at one point start on what was effectively pole position. By the way, don't forget that one. He was the only winner in all of that. Just missing out on that podium. He'll be gutted. But in terms of the constructors championship, massive result for Valtteri Bottas in P3 today. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Mercedes have got that in the bag now. I can't see Red Bull turning that around in one race.
Yeah, it's quite a big gap now. It's going to need a lot of chaos for that to swap around for Red Bull to get that points deficit. It's going to need reliability issues, I think, from Mercedes, which isn't unheard of for this season, but still very, very unlikely that that's going to swing back around. But I feel a little bit for Valtteri today. I mean, he's got 2 races to go, so I think we're all a little bit emotional that it's coming to an end. And what a lovely driver he's been for that team. It's not always been super consistent, but he's really been there when they've really, really needed him. And he's always helped them secure both championships. So they'll be disappointed he's going. He'll be gutted, and he will know that next time out could, in theory, be his last ever chance at a race victory. But today, good start. At that very, very first restart, held P2, and it looked like he was going to be able to do what he's always done and be Lewis Hamilton's rear gunner. Try and keep Verstappen at bay, hold P2, try and secure that 1-2. And not only did he get unlucky with that red flag, also then on that restart where Max pushed Hamilton a bit wide, it really hurt Bottas's race. And I believe, did he start 6th or 8th on that next restart? Either of the two, he was quite...
Mate, do not ask me to think about what happened in that race.
I know.
Who is Valtteri Bottas?
Exactly.
I was just thinking, how did he end up down there? How did he end up down there?
He was, well, I think it was just when Max came back on and pushed Lewis and Ocon went through. I think Bottas also just got caught up in that.
Oh, he lost up, didn't he?
Lost a few. Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. He almost took out Max, didn't he? Everything happened today. But then when he was stuck behind Danny, Rick and Ocon, I thought, this is going to be another one of those Bottas races where he just can't get past the midfield cars. Danny's always going to push him. Ricciardo's never going to give an inch, or at least if he does, he's going to try and do a late lunge. And Ocon fighting for that podium, you think he's going to try his very best to hold on to it. And fair play for Valtteri to fighting his way through and getting that podium. And I suppose, though Checo really had no, I don't say no luck, but was in the wrong place at the wrong time in that second restart, I'm happy for Valtteri that he's now secured 3rd in the standings. I think that's a nice way to end his Mercedes career. He's nicked that podium today, which again could be his last for Mercedes. I would like him to get a good result next time out. I think he deserves it for what he's given to that team. But a solid job from him today. And in the scheme of the championship, drivers and constructors, he's done exactly what he needed to do today, and he can be proud of his job.
Yeah, got it done, didn't he? In the end, I think he was running well up to that point, and then it all kind of went wrong for him. But yeah, he locked up, nearly went into the back of Verstappen. I did think, no, Valtteri, don't, mate. You don't need that on your CV. I'm not saying it was a deliberate thing. I'm just saying, just don't, because you just know what's going to happen if that happens. And yeah, got caught out there. But there is one thing on Bottas that we do need to talk about that seems to have been forgotten. The incident, if you like, under the safety car where he seemed to back Max Verstappen right up. Very cheeky, actually against the rules. I think there's a delta they've got to stick to, and they can't back up, they can't slow down by a certain amount. Either the FIA had forgotten about that because, let's face it, it all went a bit crazy, or he was within the rules, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If the FIA have looked at it, and said, well, he's within his delta, then there's nothing to worry about there. But it was cheeky. It was very on the line at the very least there, Dan. I think he's quite lucky to avoid at least an investigation on that one, because he did back him up a lot, and we've seen it before, penalties given for backing drivers up in the pit entry, to be fair, more than on the racetrack. So we need to go back and read those regulations. If somebody knows what it says there, let me know. But it might be that you can't do that on pit entry rather than on the track. But he was definitely slow, and he was definitely backing Max up there. So I am again surprised that wasn't at least briefly looked at.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. It's still, well, yeah. Why haven't they investigated it? It's another one of those that today they just did not seem to be in control. And you're right, it's something that has been set as a precedent before. Drivers have received penalties for it, and it's one of those where it's a slam dunk. The FIA can see the telemetry, so maybe they already have and have decided, yeah, he's done nothing wrong. Maybe Hamilton was really pushing that boundary and really right on the edge of how quick he could have been going. Valtteri was the other end of the scale and going as slow as he possibly could. But it wasn't even the only time we saw that today. I know earlier we mentioned the restarts, and there was a bit of confusion on the difference between a restart and a formation lap. But also Raikkonen, when he was holding up Max and Hamilton, he was going really slow at one point, and not for just a couple of corners, for what seemed to be like half a lap, and then got going again. So it seems like they're being really lenient with some of these telemetries, and maybe that seems to be looked into. But I'm with you on this one. When I saw it at first glance, I thought Bottas could be in trouble here. It's only because the rest of the race was so carnage. I think it's going to kind of go under the rug a little bit, but it shouldn't, because that's quite an important part of the race if we didn't have the rest of the carnage that followed.
Yeah, like I said, I was just surprised it wasn't investigated. And if it was investigated, I've expected a penalty. But again, we don't have the data, like you say, Dan. It might be that it was fine. The FIA might say, well, he was within his delta and all of that business. But yeah, still. One more for him, and then he's off to Alfa, and he can crack on and do what he needs to. I think he's done a good job. We'll talk about Bottas over the winter, I'm sure, mate, but he's done all right at Mercedes. Not amazing. He's had some brilliant drives, but I don't think he's been amazing. But he's been the perfect number two. What Hamilton says that he was the best number two in history, or teammate in history, or something like that. So yeah, certainly his best teammate, but he's done his job, hasn't he? Sergio Perez, not a lot to say. Poor guy, got caught up in that nasty accident, didn't he? After the kind of, should we say, concertina effect of the leaders kind of almost tripping over each other into turn one, and that nasty one for Mazepin, which we'll talk about in a bit as when we get to Nikita, but got caught out in that one, didn't he? And caught by Leclerc. Maybe didn't know Leclerc was there. Forgot he was there. I don't know. Got kind of squeezed between two cars, pitched round, and that was game over for him. So kind of gutting for him. Because he's been on a pretty decent run, I think it's fair to say. As he's kind of, I think I said it last time out, as he's been allowed to kind of dictate his own setup a little bit more and take the car where he wants it to be. He's definitely improved massively, and he's got better as the season's progressed at this back end of the season. So it's a shame that he's not finished on a high today. I'm sure he will in Abu Dhabi, but really costly for Red Bull is probably the big takeaway from that one. But anything on that incident, mate? We're going to talk about Leclerc anyway, but I think that's just one of those, what you could call a first lap incident. Too many cars trying to bottleneck into one spot, and bang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty. I mean, we've seen it all weekend long, haven't we, in F2, and those cars are even skinnier than Formula One cars. And I think today, 3 starts, there was always going to be some chaos. Even on the very first start, Yuki forcing Ocon into the wall, that was close enough. And I just think that second go, the concertina, like you say, I think definitely had an effect. And when you're trying to get 3 or 4 cars wide through that part of the circuit where it's narrowing, there's always going to be contact. And I think, yeah, Checo's not quite, either he's seen Leclerc's there and seen on the other side there was another car. Was it Ocon or Alonso's? Someone was on the other side. It's going to be narrow margins either way. And it's just unfortunate it was contact. I think, in fairness, was lucky he didn't get caught out by any other cars coming behind. I think was very lucky that wasn't a much worse incident than it was. But still, I can't really put blame at anyone's door. I think it's just one of those first lap incidents that unfortunately happen from time to time.
Stewards had a look at it, just to let you know as well. No further action. Stewards heard from Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez. Team representatives reviewed the video evidence and determined neither driver was predominantly to blame. I kind of feel like that. I mean, You could argue he should be more aware of Leclerc on his inside, but if he's trying to avoid the car on his outside, he's got to go somewhere, hasn't he? He can't just disappear. So yeah, I think that's a fair decision by the stewards. Let's roll through the rest of the field. Then we'll try and do team by team as we always do. I'll keep an eye out for that decision. We'll do your super chats along the way as well. I'll try and take some comments from chat, and we'll do Q&A a bit later too, as well as driver of the day and all that business. Esteban Ocon, we've kind of touched on it, Dan. Super race from him today. He did look in a little bit with the chaos ahead of him, but still. It's been a while since I said this. You've got to be in that position to take advantage of that luck when it falls your way. That's basically what Ocon's done today. Fantastic for him. Fantastic for Alpine as well in the constructors. I think that has pretty much wrapped up that. If it hasn't, I haven't seen I haven't really done the maths on the constructors, but I would argue that's probably done. Where are we? So Alpine 149, AlphaTauri 120. I can't see AlphaTauri outscoring him by 29, 30 points in the next race. So great result for Alpine today. Pretty faultless. Just really gutted that he couldn't get that podium. Just missing out by a tenth on the line. He was so frustrated. And of course, he was also involved in a little bit of... it wasn't quite wheel banging with Lewis Hamilton. There was a little bit of contact, wasn't there, at turn one? Or seemed to be, I think, going into turn one on that first restart. But I think Ocon, pretty stellar today, bless him. He's had a good year, I think, it's fair to say. He only won a bloody race. Of course, he's had a good year, but I think he's done a good job.
I've been critical of him. I'm not going to hide away from that. I think I wouldn't say it's been a good year, but I do think there's been some pretty stellar performances. And you're right, the win was one of them, and today was definitely one of them. Because forgetting the result all weekend long, he's had the measure of Fernando Alonso, who recently has been going from strength to strength. A podium last time out, probably had his best race of the season. And Ocon's been on it this weekend, made it through into Q3. In that first phase of the race was really racy, despite that little wheel banging slam into the wall from Yuki Tsunoda.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, it all seemed to happen for Ocon today. Yeah, right. And then, like you say, with the restart, that bit of contact with Hamilton, don't really think that was anyone's fault. Max, nice and opportunistic. Hamilton and Ocon, tiny bit of contact, but all of them pretty much getting away from it. I even think that race restart when Ocon was on pole that I just mentioned was a good start from Ocon. He didn't yield to Hamilton straight away. He really did try and fight it, which is nice to see when he's in a midfield car. And his pace was just really good throughout the entire race. It took Bottas the whole thing to catch up to him. Yes, he was behind Daniel Ricciardo, but you'd say that McLaren is quicker than the Alpine. You'd say the two Ferraris were quicker than the Alpine, and yet he was comfortably P3 for the entire Grand Prix. And if it wasn't for Bottas closing in on him in those last few laps, I don't think we'd have seen him. And I think that's a real testament to his drive today. Again, I'm not convinced it's been an amazing season. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the winter, and I think that's quite a fun one to debate his year so far, but I can't fault him today. So unlucky not to secure that podium, and just a really good drive to end his season.
Yeah, I forgot about the squeeze. He's quite lucky, isn't he? That could have been damage and race over there quite easily. So to get 4, the extra bonus, he probably thought at one moment, oh, God, that's it. I'm going for an early bath. But yeah, I think he did well today. And Jonathan just pointed out in chat, the only reason you're saying that, he's not had a good season is because he's a better French driver than Grosjean. He's accusing you of being salty, mate. I wouldn't stand for that. It's true.
I mean, is he the highest French driver in the standings at the moment? No, he's not. So I'm not going there. I'm not biting to it. You've done well, Jonathan.
Alonso, a bit of a weird race for Alonso. You brought him up there. I don't really know how to sum it up. I think he had a couple of really nice scraps. I think he had a good one with some pictures in here somewhere later of him having a good scrap with, I think it was Giovinazzi. A nice little squabble there and kind of seemed to be involved in some things, Alonso, but just never really got going. I know he had some problems with his car. I did write them on the notes, but I can't find my pad. I threw it because I just gave up. But he had some problems. I think it was with deployment of energy at one point in the race. I think his DRS early on was giving him grief in the first race. So he didn't have it all... It didn't all go his way, let's say, mechanically today, is probably the way to put it. He had his issues, but other than that, just sort of went backwards a little bit, didn't he? And got involved in some places, but was really the big highlight for me of his race was perhaps he was a massive advocate of bringing out a safety car when the track was covered in debris. Fernando Alonso doing the job of race direction while he's driving around at an average speed of 150 odd miles an hour, but whatever. Yeah, not much to say on Fernando, just kind of disappointed because he has such a great race last time we got that podium, so it would have been nice to see him continue that, but, you know, it's Alonso, he'll probably win the race in Abu Dhabi. You know what he's bloody like. He always seems to bounce back, doesn't he?
He does, but and don't forget his spin as well. He had a spin halfway through the race, just losing the rears. I lose track of the turns, maybe turn 6 or 7, something like that, and was lucky not to be collected by a couple of cars. I think that was Latifi coming through at the time, but yeah, just seemed like an off day. Good start, just seemed to fall back through the pack. And when you see the pace of Ocon, it's surprising that Alonso struggled so much. And I think I don't want to blame it all on the issues with the car because I think Ocon just was really, really good today. And I don't want to take that away from him, but not the best day for Fernando. I think this will be a race he'll be keen to forget.
I found my notes. All 6 of them. Yeah, just deployment issues with his energy. So that was it for Alonso, really. Not great, but hey, Ocon got the points. It's really about the constructors for Alpine this year. So I think actually that's put Ocon pretty close to Alonso in the standings as well. I think there's only 5 points between them now, so that's an interesting scrap. I don't think many people would have thought Ocon might pip Alonso in the standings, but one race to go. That's one to keep an eye on. When do we get to Sudan Alpine? So McLaren, Daniel Ricciardo, P5. I think great result for him. We'll take that. And P10 for Norris. I think we said last time, Dan, I don't think the constructors is going to go McLaren's way there. I think, in fact, they're not far off it being wrapped up completely. I'm not going to try and do the math live. But yeah, I think Danny Rick, solid race, got home in 5th place, did manage to fend off Bottas nicely towards the end. Some little scrapping there going on, but would you say 5th about the best they could have expected today? Although I think you just said that you'd expect the McLaren to be quicker than the Alpine, so maybe Danny Rick could have been 4th, 12.5 seconds off.
I think when you look at the race from where they started, Danny Rick P5, that's a really good job. Obviously, Lando had a very different turn of events today, really unlucky with that red flag timing. But McLaren, we said it last weekend, they're just in this weird space at the moment where Ferrari seem to have the better of them. I still think they're quicker than Alpine, but pretty nip and tuck with AlphaTauri. And again, I don't want to do the maths either, buddy. So we'll leave someone in chat to do that. It looks done and dusted now in the constructors, which I don't think they'll mind. I think most teams at this point of the year, yes, it would be nice to move up 1 or 2 positions, but they've got their cars for next year now. They're pretty much nailed on to being where they're going to be. There's not going to be much changes from here on out. And in the drivers, Danny Rick, I'm just looking 15 points in front of Gasly. I think that result today pretty much secures him in P8. Norris still in the fight with Leclerc and Sainz. So a funny one for McLaren. I think though the start of the year was electric and Norris's form was insane, Ricciardo seems to have recovered a little bit, but I think they're going to be one of these teams that are happy for the season to end at this point. 5th today, it's okay, but I don't think it's going to be losing sleep or going to be super happy about it. It's just one of those all right results.
Yeah, I've not got a lot in my notes. Ricciardo, nothing, and then Norris, I've got safety car pit, and I think he was a bit frustrated with some incidents further down, wasn't he? We ended up down in 16th and wasn't, just not. He had a really rough start, Norris. I cannot remember. I'm so sorry. I cannot remember what happened in that first start that saw Norris fall so far down. Maybe it was to do with the safety car. I don't know. Would make sense. Pitted. Yeah, he would have done. Pitted on the softs, didn't he, under the safety car? Then put on some new tyres, and then everybody else didn't pit, or a load of people didn't, and he fell through the field. So just kind of caught out by the red flag there. Just unlucky in that regard, but. You know,
and don't forget as well, when Perez and Leclerc crashed, I think Norris was right behind them and dropped right to the back of the field on that next restart. So I think that's what really hurt his race.
Got caught out by that as well. So just a frustrating one for Norris. I think Ricciardo will be the happier of the drivers. I think that's an obvious statement. I think McLaren will be happy with 11 points today, but I don't think it's making any difference. I tend to agree with you, mate. Focus on next year now. And Pierre Gasly, P6 for him. Again, didn't see an awful lot of him because of all the drama at the front and the chaos going on elsewhere, but he just always seems to be somewhere in the points, doesn't he, for the most part, and it's 6th place again today, trying to keep that fight alive against Alpine. I don't think it's going to happen, but hey, at least he scored points today. Dan will now tell me that he somehow shunted somebody into the wall, but Yuki Tsunoda and the other AlphaTauri, scruffy moment with Sebastian Vettel. was an interesting one. I'm actually, controversial opinion perhaps, I'm quite surprised the stewards went with a penalty for Tsunoda. You're all going to think I'm stupid for that, but we've seen them not given, because he wasn't given an awful lot of room by Seb coming back on. I think Seb thought the move was done, wasn't it? Didn't he, when he sort of came back across into turn 2 to take the corner? But I think Yuki will feel that he was left no space there at all. But at the same time, there is a bit of runoff there that he could have gone for and avoided it. And he is the car on the outside, and as we know, depending on what race it is, when it comes to the FIA rules, the car on the outside either has to yield or it doesn't have to yield. It depends which race it is and which drivers it is. But you're probably going to tell me I'm nuts and it's absolutely a penalty, but I just think 5 seconds is probably right if you're giving a penalty. But Seb didn't exactly give him an awful lot of space. But again, in Seb's defence, probably thought it was done.
I would agree. I think you're bang on. I can't argue with it, mate. I thought at the time, that's a shame for Seb, a shame for Yuki, but that's a racing incident. Both of them not really wanting to give an edge. Yuki doesn't want to go over the runoff because then you have the whole farce of giving back the position, which no one wants to do. He still had his wheel in, and his front wing was just, I think, just about enough alongside or close enough to Seb that he could at least try for it, and Seb knew he was there. They were fighting into turn 1, so I was surprised it's a penalty. I'm not going to be completely outraged, because if you're going to put the blame a little bit towards someone a bit more, I think, yeah, you would go Yuki, but it's a harsh one. It's still a disappointing day for Tsunoda, though, penalty or not. When you see his pace all weekend seem to be pretty much level with Gasly, it's another one of those where he's had a difficult start, struggled to work his way through the field. On one of the restarts, went around the outside of someone at the hairpin. Was it Fernando Alonso? I can't quite remember, but it was a very cheeky move indeed. But apart from that, he'll be annoyed that he's made contact today. This would have been a really good race just to keep it clean. On a circuit where people are expecting crashes, it's difficult to stay out of the walls. I think if he'd have kept it clean today, people would, in that reputation that's starting to build, may have just vanished a little bit. But bless him, he's still found another car today, and not scoring points on a day like today, it's going to be a tough one to swallow. Next year, it's going to be a lot of pressure. He's got to use all of the teachings from this year to really bounce back and push Gasly a lot further. But Gasly, who's on this incredible wave of form, even today, where 6th place, okay, it's not his best result of the year, but it's another really big points haul. I think he's now on 100 as well, which for an AlphaTauri car, that's great. That no one should be doing that in one of those cars. So another great season from him. But yeah, I'm a little upset for Yuki today, because he seemed so happy all weekend, and it seemed like he did have the pace for some good points. But once again, it's just not gone his way.
Yeah, I think it's somebody points out. I think that's one of probably the first time in F1 history 9 drivers have hit 100 points as well. I think somebody said stats wise a couple of weeks ago that if he does that, that'll be that. So that's quite amazing. It just sums up the season beautifully, doesn't it? And just again, Yuki Tsunoda, he was the one that gave the little nudge on Ocon at the start, which left him in the wall. I'm not blaming, that's a first lap thing for me. Not a lot of space down there, is it, for side by side cars? So yeah, not much on that. And the 5, like you say, Dan, the 5-second penalty, I'm not angry he got it. I'm just, it's a consistency thing again. We've seen them not given because the driver on the inside wasn't given room, and we've seen them given like we did today. So I don't know, maybe I've just been a pedantic old fart. I don't know. Just want to argue today. Ferrari. Got to talk about Ferrari. Love that picture. Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc side by side, I think, a couple of times today, which was exciting to see. Great result for them. It kind of, I mean, they're pretty much nailed on in third now, aren't they, really? Unless we have a mad final race. But they should be in for third place today. Charles Leclerc was caught out with that incident with Sergio Perez. No further action on that one. Was sort of squeezed into the wall. He pitted under the safety car as well. Carlos Sainz, I can't remember where he started. I think it was quite a way down, but he came through very, very nicely and was right there with his teammate as well in 8th place. There was the question mark about whether or not he passed Antonio Giovinazzi under the safety car. I was watching the timing tower, and I think the timing tower takes a little seconds to update sometimes, doesn't it? But the safety car graphic had gone to virtual safety car just as they had switched over as well. I think they were very close, but no action on that one. So obviously the stewards are fine with it. But I don't think I don't think he passed him under the safety car there, so obviously didn't. Otherwise, he'd have been given a penalty or thrown out of the race, unless I missed something completely different. He didn't even finish the race. But yeah, I think a stellar drive from both the Ferraris today. I think they can now start to focus a little bit on next year. They want to make sure they get this third place over the line next weekend, but they can focus now on really just 2022 and what a lot of people seem to think is going to be a title winning year. It's a bit early for predictions yet, Dan, but a few people seem to think it's Ferrari's year next year. So there you go. Why worry about third place this year, lads?
You're not wrong. I think for most of these teams that aren't called Red Bull or Mercedes, their focus has already switched. But I'm still interested to see that fight for fifth. Leclerc's up to P5 now, but only 4 points in front of Norris. Sainz is only 8.5 behind Leclerc, so that's fun. That could be anyone's game for 5th, 6th and 7th. And those three that get on so well in cars that are pretty even, though Ferrari have the edge at the moment, they're pretty even. That's going to be a really nice battle to watch next weekend. But today, I think, again, you've not really said much wrong there, mate. It's just one of those Ferrari days where they did everything right where they needed to. Strategy, which all year long has been better. I would say, no, though they've not been fighting for victories, it's been not one of their weaknesses this season, I would say, from Ferrari. No long overcut today from anyone because safety cars didn't allow for it, which I'm very upset about. But either way, great fights between the two of them. A great recovery from Sainz. 15th, I think it was, on the grid after that very shocking Q2 performance from him yesterday. And Leclerc in the wars, coming back to score points, I think just proves again how good he's been this year. So yeah, not a bad day for Ferrari.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I will just say again, just to anyone just tuning in, if we don't say something, we're so sorry. But if you've just caught that race, you'll totally understand why. Absolute chaos. It's difficult to really sum up some people's races, but I think Ferrari happy with that one, definitely. Do these super chats as well. I missed those off before we got to Ferrari. So Suffering Alex says Seb was total bad luck Brian today. He was. We'll talk about Seb shortly. Jamie, thank you very much, mate. He says, hope all is well, Sean and Dan. Sour race, but we got what we wanted. A showdown to the end, and I expect both guys to trade paint next week. Let's just enjoy these two hyper competitive guys dueling it out. I must admit, I was thinking it actually, funnily enough, I think Martin Brundle said something similar. I love watching Hamilton and Verstappen when they're out front together. And they're just flat out. Hungary 2019 was, I think, one of the first times we really saw that, when they're both flat out. They are in a completely different league to everybody else, and I think it's been brilliant. And again, I know the stresses that fans will be going through of each driver, but it's so nice being sat here and just being able to watch two flipping brilliant drivers going head to head for this championship, even if it is getting controversial at times, let's put it that way. Nokui, I think, if I pronounced that wrong, so sorry, says a $50,000 fine for Lewis for touching Max's rear wing on the back straight. Very good. Very good. And Cool Ollie says, first time listening to you guys. That was such a crazy race. I had to seek out immediate discussion. Thank you very much, Cool Ollie. You sound very cool. And welcome to the channel. And if you are new, by the way, welcome. Sorry, it's on a slightly more chaotic stream than usual. Not that they're ever all that under control, let's be honest, but yes, always here after races to talk nonsense for what's supposed to be an hour but is often a week. Dan's like, leave me alone, I want to go to bed. Yeah, so thank you very much, Ollie. Thank you for all your super chats as well. I'll try and make sure to get to them a bit more promptly in future. So we've done Ferrari, not much to say on them any more than we've said. Alfa, Giovinazzi, pretty bloody good weekend, I think, for Giovinazzi. Top 10 in qualifying, couple of points today. He's leaving at the end of the season. I'd just like to see him have a strong finish. So I'm really, really happy for him today to get those points. Couple of seconds up the red, 3 seconds actually clear of Norris. 11.8 behind, so he wasn't ever really looking likely to challenge those ahead. And I'm going to say this now. Absolutely super move around the outside of, the outside of turn 1, the inside of turn 2 on, I think it was Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
Early on, absolutely super move from Gio. Really loved that one. That was before it all properly kicked off, wasn't it? I was like, better write that down in case nothing else happens, because it was getting a bit processional. But fantastic from Gio. Really chuffed for him. Hopefully he can carry that on into the final race and have a good finish there as well. So yeah, Kimi Räikkönen, scruffy one in the end. He did stop he had a slow stop for front wing, 60 seconds. That contact as well with Sebastian Vettel. That was a weird one, wasn't it? Don't you think, Dan? Kimi Räikkönen and Sebastian Vettel, they've got, 5 championships between them? And that looked all a little bit amateur hour, didn't it?
I liked the fact that Kimi went for it, because I don't think anyone else was going to go for that move this weekend because it was brave. And I love the fact that even though he's in his last two races, he's going to go for it. You're right, it probably wasn't the right thing to do. Probably wasn't the smartest place to be going for an overtake, but he probably just wants to enjoy his last two races. He probably doesn't care if he gets penalties, reprimands, what goes on. He just wants to have fun out there. It was a very weird one for him today. That pit stop didn't help. That weird holding up Verstappen and Lewis in the safety car was odd. Don't know if he was just enjoying the ride for a few laps behind the safety car. I don't really know, but yeah, a funny one for Kimi today. Not the greatest. And to carry on just quickly what you're saying from Gio, I just wish he could have done that more often this year. It's another great quali performance, Q3 in a car which shouldn't be in Q3, and this time he's actually secured the points. Strategy has gone his way for once, and though he wasn't able to hold off the Ferraris, he was fighting in about 6th or 7th for quite a lot of that race today. I just wish he could have done it more often. And it's a shame he's going to Formula E, not only because it's a step down from Formula One, but he's going to a back marker in Formula E as well. And I think given the right opportunity, he's a really good racing driver. It's just a shame it's not quite worked out in Formula One.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's been dreadful this season at all. I don't think he's been dreadful in Formula One. He's just not been. He's not been great. He's not been terrible. He's just. Oh, bless him. He's just not been much. Do you know what I mean? He's kind of he's a really, I just find a really inoffensive driver in every way possible. He's all right. It's what I'd say, but I do feel that if they could get a replacement in or somebody they were happy with, that he would be the one that had to go. Even if Kimi hadn't retired, I think Gio would still have been the one to go. I know that every team's criteria for drivers differs. It's just a shame it's not Oscar Piastri in that seat next year. Anyway, Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll down at Aston Martin. Moving on very quickly before I get onto that one. We just talked about Vettel and Raikkonen. I mean, Vettel was already caught up in that one with Tsunoda. Really frustrating day for him. Car just shedding parts. Eventually just came in and retired towards the end. I don't blame him. I'm surprised he went as far as he did, to be honest. Bless him. Just not a great weekend for Aston at all. Lance Stroll up in 11th place today, but knocked out, I think, was it only the Haas boys behind them in qualifying yesterday? What's that about? Absolutely shocking from Aston. We just said about teams focusing on next year. I think they've been focused on next year for a while now. They've been in that P7 in the championship pretty solidly for a while, so why even bother with this year? It's absolutely crazy, really. I'm so surprised how much they've dropped off this year. I didn't think they'd carry on like they were when they were Racing Point last year and being in that fight, but I'm really surprised how dramatically they've fallen away. So really gutted for them. I hope for a better season. But yeah, we've talked about the Vettel incident. I'll just check I haven't written anything else down. Jump in if you can think of anything, Dan. But contact with Tsunoda, car falling to pieces after contact with Raikkonen. Stroll had a moment with Russell, didn't he? Yes, he did. So let's do that. Actually, yeah, Stroll. I was going to do it for Russell, but we'll just say on Stroll and Russell. We'll do these two together. Why not? So which corner was it? There was a little moment, wasn't there, where I thought there was contact. I think a lot of people thought there was contact. Stroll around the outside of Russell, but from the replays I've seen, there wasn't contact. Stroll then kind of abandons it and cuts across what little runoff there was and stayed ahead of George Russell, and that led to an angry George Russell. Did you see contact in that one, Dan? The stewards obviously didn't.
I mean, if there was, it was very minimal. I think he gained an advantage by going off the track. I think that's pretty cut and dry, but very, very minimal contact if there was any. But it was just one of those days for Aston, wasn't it? I don't think anything was going right for them today.
Yeah, nothing really to add on that one. Just 77 points. What are they? I mean, AlphaTauri, their nearest challenger, 120 points. I mean, that is such a drop off, isn't it? Are you surprised by how much they've dropped off this year, Dan, or is it just me being over the top as usual?
I'm not surprised they've gone backwards in the sense that they're now trying to be their own team. They're not just a copy and paste from last year's Mercedes. Without offending too many people, I felt getting Seb in the car was inevitably going to be a step back from Checo, just because it's a new team, it's a new environment for him. He didn't have a great year last year. Could he bounce back? I think the bigger surprise for me, though, rather than the constructors, is just today in general, this weekend. Like, it's one thing being slower than your other competitors in Alfa Tauri, Alpine, McLaren, and Ferrari. You know, they're all good teams, solid teams. You've been fighting all year long, but to be slower than both Williams cars that at points this year have been as slow or roundabout where the Haas's were, that was the bigger surprise. To have both cars out in Q1 on pace, that is just not good enough. That is an issue not with the drivers. That is purely to do with the car. And for me, surely that's got to be set up as well. Because that car we've seen does have pace. It got a podium in Baku, and this circuit isn't a million miles off in Baku, and they weren't terrible in Monza. So I have no idea what happened to them this weekend. Another team that definitely will be looking forward to next year. But yeah, when you compare it to last season, it's been pretty dire this year.
Let's roll on to Williams and Haas, and then we can come back to the other points and take your questions and all of that. So Williams and Haas, what do we got? Latifi, I've got nothing for. Bless him. There's not even many pictures of him. That's actually one from qualifying. It's on screen now. There are not many of him. So he's had a quiet day as Latifi. Probably one of the only drivers to have a quiet day. What I will say for Nicholas Latifi, though, I know we only had 15 finishes, but P12, he finished ahead of Alonso, Tsunoda and Raikkonen. Of course, there are reasons behind that, I know, but still nice of him not to be last of the, if you like, the back two teams, if you want to call them that. So probably all I'm going to say, Latifi, I'll let you come in a minute, Dan, and you might have something that I haven't in my notes. We've just talked about Russell with that incident with Stroll. Can completely understand his frustration because that, like you say, Dan, that for me, Stroll is gaining an advantage there. And the contact thing, I'm going off what Crofty said. Oh, there's contact. You know what it's like. No, Crofty's not even on the track. What are you on about? But he said there was contact, so I just wanted to check that one. I've not seen anything that suggests that there was, so I didn't think there was, to be honest. He pitted under the safety car as well. But just got caught out in that chaos, didn't he, with Mazepin and co. I'm sure Russell was caught up in that. Yeah, he retired, didn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Turn one, so kind of just, yeah. I frustrating, and he looked absolutely gutted when he got out of the car. But he was... I can't think of any other word for it. I'm stuttering on this because I don't know if I want to use this word, but I'm going to have to use it. He was shafted by Nikita Mazepin, wasn't he? Right, that was a nasty accident. I shouldn't laugh about it, but it's the only word I can think of. It was a really nasty accident. Mazepin, if you didn't see it, just right into the back of Russell. Russell's car came up at the back. That could have been that could have been a million times worse. So just glad both drivers are fine with that one, but just wrong place, wrong time for George today, wasn't it, really? There's not much you can do about that.
Yeah, just a passenger, wasn't he? And he could see the chaos that was going on in front. Lucky to avoid Perez. I said that earlier on. I think so many drivers lucky to avoid Perez, but Mazepin kind of blind because he had so many cars in front of him slowing down. Couldn't really do a lot. Probably could have saw that was a few cars slowing down. Maybe he should, but I don't want to put blame on that. That's really split-second decisions, and he couldn't really see what was going on. Gone into the back of Russell. Thank goodness for the halo. Surprised that's not a worse incident. We saw something pretty horrendous in F2 earlier on today, and I think we still don't have a full picture of the extent of what's gone on that incident just yet. So Mazepin and Russell, I think, quite lucky to get away with that one like they did. But George, good quali, as per usual in 2021. That car, I don't think, was ever really going to fight for points today, but today was just one of those races. I think Haas will probably be disappointed today because today was one of those events where there was a bit more chaos. If Lewis and Max had crashed, if Bottas had crashed, if anyone had just lost the rear at some point, completely different story. Red flag during the middle of the race, completely different story. Couple of safety cars. It's a chance for points for teams like Williams and Haas. So that's, I think, where more the frustration's going to come from. And yeah, the Latifi thing, I'm with you on that. Bless him. A really quiet day. 12th is a good result. And I think of late, he's been getting closer to George Russell. And I'm looking forward to seeing his fight with Alex Albon next year. But hey, I don't think there's much more he could have done in that car. And P12 isn't a terrible result for him.
No, not at all. Mazepin, obviously, just said about the Russell incident, that was a nasty one. There's not, like you say, I can't put any blame on any driver there. It was just one of those. It was a knock-on effect, wasn't it, of everything that was going on ahead, and there was already contact going on, and they've got to try and get the brakes on and trying to avoid everything. It was inevitable on a street track. This was always going to happen this weekend. We'll talk about that again in a bit, but just a nasty one. Just glad that Mazepin, Russell, everybody involved was okay with that one. Mazepin, I mean, not a great weekend, but he's not had a great season. He's not got a great car either, to be fair, but again, well off his teammate. But I think Ted Kravitz was saying that Mazepin is enjoying this season because every race is a learning race for him. So he's learning something new every race. So hopefully, I think Stuart nailed this in a stream. We're going back a few months now, Dan. He said that, for all the criticism of his performances on track, Mazepin is here for a long time. So we need to see him getting better because we want good drivers on the grid, don't we? So it's important that whilst he hasn't had a great season, that he is learning, and that next season he comes back and improves, and the season after that improves, because he's here for as long as his dad's here, basically, isn't he? As long as his dad's willing to invest in a team, Nikita Mazepin's got a seat. So we need to see him improve. So hopefully he is able to do that. I don't have all his data and telemetry, and I don't pay an awful lot of attention to either Haas driver, quite frankly, because we never see anything of them this season. But so I can't really honestly tell you if he's improving, but he spun out in turn 1 in Bahrain, and that's been my joke all season, or turn 3 in Bahrain, and we've not seen that every weekend. So, I mean, it's progress, but most important thing, jokes aside, he's okay after that incident. Mick Schumacher as well. Really glad he's okay after that one. That's a nasty one at turn 22. Is that the third or fourth one we've seen this weekend? We had one in F2. We had Charles Leclerc. Trying to think, was another one. That's definitely 3 with Mick Schumacher, isn't it? At turn 22, just losing the car and into the wall, and that caused the first red flag.
And we also saw it in F2 today with the second red flag, where was it Caldwell went into the same wall, but then came back across the track. Nasty one for Schumacher, and he's had a much better season than Mazepin. I think. Bless Mazepin, though he's not been great this year, he just hasn't quite settled in as quick as Schumacher. Because though Schumi won the title last year, Mazepin wasn't bad in F2. He gave Schumacher a good run for his money, won multiple races, and yet the gap this year in that car has been quite big. So I'm with you and Stuart on that. I think this year learning is really important, and I think there's more pace he has inside him. I think he's a better driver than he showed this year. But again, I mentioned it with Williams a moment ago. I think this will be one of those races where Haas will be a little disappointed. Their car stinks this year. We all know this. It's a terrible bit of kit that they've got underneath them, and today could have been one of those days. But unfortunately, it was their cars that crashed out. So I would be very surprised if they score in Abu Dhabi. It's going to be their first season with no points. Their first season at the bottom of the constructors. They will very much be looking forward to next season, both drivers and very much everyone involved in that team.
Hey, if they end up as a strong midfield contender next year, it was worth it, wasn't it? But at the moment, it's going to be tough for him to feel that way. It's not been great. Just before we get to driver of the day, though, I've got good and bad news. Teo Pourchaire has tweeted, says, "Hey everyone, just wanted to tell you that I'm globally fine. For the moment, I don't know if it's already the end of the season for me. So good that he's relatively okay, but bad that it's potentially the end of the season for him." But he goes on to say, "The most important is not that. That was a really big one, and Enzo is injured. I wish him the best recovery possible. You guys can send him kind messages. He needs that." So Teo Pourchaire, potentially, if I read that tweet correctly, his season might be over after that one, but he is relatively okay. But Enzo Fittipaldi is injured. So obviously sending all the best to Teo Pourchaire and Enzo Fittipaldi. That was a horrible accident. But that's the latest on that one. We've not really had a proper update on that one, unless I've missed it, Dan. But really, really nasty incident. Of course, I'm sure you will as well, mate. Send all our best to both drivers.
Definitely a really, really nasty incident, and there's been no replays, rightly so. So little information, which you always assume the worst. So it's nice that it's not critical and that Teo's seemingly okay for the most part. But yeah, thoughts to both of them, because that was horrible, and speedy recovery hopefully for both of them as well.
Driver of the day then. Let me know. One surname in chat, then we'll do some Q&A and I'll read some super chats as well. One surname in chat. Who is driver of the day? Dan, I actually think there is an easy one. I think we probably both want to go for it, so this could be interesting. But I think other than that, it's not the easiest decision this week. Who you got? I'll let you go first. I'll be nice for a change.
Mate, I love you for that. That's a lovely thing for you to do. I'm gonna go with Esteban Ocon.
No, shut your mouth. I don't
Yes,
believe you.
and I'll tell you why. He was great today. He was really, really good, and there was a fight in front that I think the cameras focused on a little bit more than everything else today. So it's hard to really give a concrete answer for anyone else, but the pace he had in that car, which, as I've said, is not as quick as that McLaren, the Ferrari, the Mercedes, and to be a 10th away from a podium today, that's awesome stuff. That's a great drive. To be almost slammed into the wall at turn one, to have a little bit of contact on one of the restarts as well, and to keep on going, to put in a performance like that, definitely worthy of driver of the day. And I'm surprised he wasn't higher on the actual one as well, but we all know that is what it is. So enjoy picking yours, buddy.
I think you're right. He's definitely a worthy driver of the day. Completely agree. Ocon very much deserves that one. It's difficult because I tend to have a rule where if a driver has caused or been involved in an incident, I don't tend to give a driver of the day, which really limits options today. I think Carlos Sainz has got to get a nod for 15th to 8th, although some of that is going to be because of the chaos, but he still, got up there and had a great scrap with his teammate. I think Pierre Gasly, even though I didn't see much of him, I think he did a good job today. The problem I've got, Dan, is that there's not many notes for what would probably be my backup shout, which might be a Daniel Ricciardo or a Pierre Gasly, so I don't really know if I can pick them. So I'm kind of...
Obviously not. Okay,
maybe for the weekend. I think he had a great weekend, but yeah. Cheers, mate. I could Gio.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Ocon is the only name on my board.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that.
That's where I'm at. So I'll say Ocon for my driver of the day, but I will also give shout-outs to Antonio Giovinazzi for a very good weekend, Pierre Gasly for just being Pierre Gasly, quite frankly, another 6th place. Always has been the points, and I think Danny Rick as well gets a nod. But yeah, I'm going to see what you guys say. I might just say Van Dorn. It's probably easier, to be honest. Grosjean. Yeah, Emily says Ocon. I think we know where this is going. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to keep saying Ocon. I'm just going to read your name. So, Emily, Nico, Manny, T9T, obviously Annette goes Ricardo, VTech Panda, Arnav, Bruh, Jaws, Boko, Blackhawk, So, Alfie, Southern, David, Nuke Dukem, Kitty Hawk, Oksana, Lewis or Louis. Sorry if I've got that wrong, but I said both just to cover my back. Green Zebra, Clayton, Ginger Knight, couple more, MKL and Nozerb, which is Charles. Good evening, mate. All going with Ocon. Lots of Ocons in there. Dennis says Sainz, which I do think is a fair point. Daniel Philpott says Latifi, because it's Philpott. Why not? Pika Pika says Codemasters did a great job. Most realistic esports race ever. Very good. Underrated comment. Red Bull Sal Patronus says Fiat. Why not? Robert says Ricardo as well. Kelly says Gio. Who else have we got in there? I saw somebody mention Bert Mylander earlier. I think it's a very good shout for driver of the day, although apparently too slow. There you go. Raz has gone with Sainz as well. Doug's gone with Max. Alex has gone with Sainz. Carlos for Orca. And Raz has gone for Sainz as well. Ocon Hamilton for Andrew Lee. Emily's gone with Hamilton as well. Who else? I'm just looking for some different but serious. We've always got the fun ones in. Why not? Thank you for everyone that said Van Dorn. Appreciate that. Max Clayton says Will Stevens. That's a blast from the past. That caught me like a sharp peak, that did. I like that from MKL, actually. Says Ocon is not tainted and he was great. I think that's a very good point. Couple more super quickly. Apex Instinct says Hamilton and Lucas says Ricardo. There you go. I think we're all in the same ballpark, aren't we? Ocon, but if not Ocon, then somebody else, which seems like a completely ridiculous thing to say. Anyway, If you have any questions, sorry, Dan, I've cracked up. If you have any questions, please do pop them in chat. I'll do any super chats that come through as well, as priority if you like, but I will try and come to you in chat. Anything about the race, I will keep an eye out for that FIA decision and see if anything happens while we're still live, but we're obviously not going to be live for too much longer. But we'll just stay live for a little bit just on the off chance it comes. It seems to be taking ages, actually, Dan. Quite surprised how long it's taking, but no, I'm not. It's the FIA. We probably won't find out until a week on Wednesday or something stupid like that. They're turning into Formula E, aren't they? George Russell, by the way, just saying that the incidents today were pretty inevitable, or his incident was pretty inevitable. You go around turn 2, that's fairly wide and open. Cars can go by side, and then it really funnels in and goes pretty narrow, pretty fast. This is what he told Autosport. I think he's basically, I think you live and learn from these experiences. You can't blame anyone for trying to make an incredible racetrack, and ultimately that's what they achieved. But I think nobody foresaw what was about to happen with all of these blind corners. In my opinion, track changes are needed. You've got so many of these small kinks that are totally unnecessary. So George Russell coming out pretty much straight after the race and telling Autosport that he thinks there should be some changes to the circuit. I don't think that's a controversial statement from George Russell. I think some of the kinks that they're listing as corners are a joke. I think the DRS positioning is weird. Apparently, Codemasters DRS is just before, is it turn 13? With the bank corner, which actually makes a lot more sense than where the FIA stuck it. I don't understand their DRS zones this weekend, Dan. I think the track has potential. I mean, the cars look great, don't they? They look fantastic, but it was just an accident waiting to happen. I think we all saw this coming, and the whole weekend has just been so tense because you're just waiting for the camera to cut to an accident. And that's, some people do love the crashes, but that's not what Formula One is. I don't sit here waiting for an accident. I want to watch some great racing.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this track. And to be honest, even after today, I don't think they've changed much. I think this track is begging for a crash. I think that's all it's there to do. And I think those first 15 laps before the chaos pretty much told the story of what this track is. It's a track that's so impossible to overtake. It's there for the spectacle. It's there to really push the boundaries of the drivers and, well, try and force them to make a mistake, being a night race, being so quick, being so tight and twisty. But in terms of actually a venue that promotes good racing, this is not it. And again, if we didn't have that fight between our two championship rivals at the front and the tension that came with that, I'm not sure this venue's for me.
Yeah, Kirill just asking, actually, is one of the comments that came through, just asking for opinions on the track. Paint asked the same as well. Like I said, I think the cars look spectacular. It does look great, but it's just there's something very uncomfortable about having a street track that is at the speed of Monza. I mean, Martin Brundle saying all weekend it's Silverstone, but with Monaco barriers. That seems mad. But, Baku is very high speed when you get through that final sector, but it's twisty. It's got 90-degree turns. I know people don't like them, but, the track's slower. It's safer. It doesn't feel... I tell you what it feels really weird to me, the track's that narrow. Because I know they've built it to be streets after the race and they're listing it as a street circuit, but they have built this. They could have made this wider. They could have made some different decisions. I know they've ended up with this fastest street track on the calendar thing, and it's a little box ticket. It's like Alton Towers. Okay, no, seriously, Alton Towers, stick with me. Alton Towers just seem to have this thing where they have to be the first this, the first that, the first so many inverted loops, the first roller coaster that shoots you to the moon, whatever. They always have to have a first something, and it felt like this track is just an excuse. I know Herman Tilke said before the race it was kind of happened by accident, but it's like they just went for this badge of the fastest street track, and it's not. I don't think it's quite right. I don't think if Schumacher doesn't crash, I think this race is a procession. I think Hamilton, Bottas 1-2, Verstappen 3rd. Maybe Verstappen would have pulled an undercut and pinched 2nd place, but I think that would have been it. I don't think there'd been much going on at all. I think what made this race, what some people would say exciting, some people dramatic, some people chaotic, is just the fact it was chaotic. That was all it was. So I think if this had been a bit more straightforward, it would have been like Baku 2016 rather than Baku 2017 when it was the European Grand Prix. Just not an awful lot happened. So I don't like the track. I didn't like it anyway. It looks like a guppy, if I'm being fair. Other people say it looks like something else, but anyway, I don't like the look of the track. I don't really like the track itself. It doesn't promote an awful lot of overtaking, but watching the cars, they do look great. They do look fantastic, to be fair, Dan. But I can watch old qualifying laps if I want to see cars smashing it around the track and looking spectacular. The cars also look spectacular under the lights in Singapore. I'm just not impressed with it at all. I agree with George Russell. There needs to be some changes somewhere. Maybe just straighten out some of those kinks so they're a bit more of a straight rather than twisting and turning, because there's too many blind corners, fast blind corners, flat out. It's a wonder. I mean, we saw some hairy moments in qualifying, didn't we? It's a wonder we didn't have a massive accident, to be honest, some airborne crashes.
Yeah, well, and obviously we had the incident at the start in F2, but the one that eventually caused the second red flag, that could have been much worse. And if that was F1, if Schumacher had spun but bounced off that barrier or spun into the racetrack, you can't slow down. These are blind corners and they're going easily over 200 miles an hour around some of these things. It's really not one I enjoyed. Yes, the drama was fun and it set us up for a great finale, but that's not really the way I would have liked to have done it today. I would have much preferred going from Qatar or just having a clean race, a race where I'm not on the edge of my seat fearing for the worst every 2 seconds. Not for me. I think there's much better venues we could have gone to, and when I compare it to the rest of the season, even tracks like Monaco and Singapore, at least they're a little bit more sensible in layout. They've got better runoff. The speed of Monaco obviously is very, very different, but the speed of Singapore is a bit of 50-50. So yeah, this isn't one I'm a big fan of.
No, but the only thing I will say is a positive. Well, we're here for a long time. It's going to be like Abu Dhabi. It's always going to be here until they decide they don't want it. So hopefully they can just make a few changes. I don't know what they can do before March. That's when the next one is. Well, they're pretty much straight away. There's 2 races before we're in Saudi Arabia again, which seems crazy. Abu Dhabi next week, and then it's Bahrain, and then we're back in Saudi Arabia in March. So I think hopefully they can make some changes going forward. It's just not quite right. Difficult. I'm not a circuit designer. Best wishes as well to Herman Tilke, I should say. He's been in ill health. I think he had a stroke. I was hearing on Sky, and has been in rehabilitation, learning how to talk again. So best wishes to Herman Tilke. Not a nice thing to go through, I'm sure. But yeah, I don't know what to say on the track. I'm just not overly thrilled with it, to be honest. But there you go. Abu Dhabi next week. Actually, Max just asked a really interesting question. Will they negotiate a way to get Abu Dhabi on free-to-air TV? It feels like a big own goal from Formula One if they don't try and do something to arrange it with Sky to at the very least put it on like whatever the equivalent of Sky One is now, or try and do a deal that enables Channel 4 to show it. Because this could be... I mean, I keep saying it. Next weekend is our first ever title decider between 2 drivers from 2 different teams since 2012. We might not get this again for another decade. It'd be they want to engage an audience and get new fans excited about the sport. You bang a championship fight, a championship deciding race on free-to-air TV. Surely there's something they could do. I know contracts are tough, but everybody has their price, and there's always a way around it. Surely, but then Sky are quite expensive with everything, aren't they? So probably, yes, 10 billion and we'll think about it.
Yeah, and with my business hat on, that's a great way of Sky for earning money, which is a horrible thing to say, because I'm with you on this. F1, if they had their big thinking heads on, would love to put this on free to view. This is a great fight for Formula One, but one of the great sporting fights across the board for a long, long time. If they could just get a couple more eyes on it, I think a lot of people would convert to Formula One fans, or at least have that little bit more interest. But money talks. And if Sky or F1 TV can drum up the interest and then force to pay as well, they will do that every day of the week if they can. It's not nice, but it's the unfortunate world we live in, which is a shame, because this is such a great opportunity for them to share, and I wish Channel 4 could have the rights to it, but unfortunately not.
And I know it's all relative money-wise, but even if Sky just turned around and offered the race for like a $5 or something.
Yeah,
just keep it, not wrong. Just something so that people have, because it's a lot. You don't want to get a Sky package for one race, and now TV is a bit of a joke with its prices at times, I think. But yeah, it would be nice to get a deal done. People saying in chat it's all about the money. You're absolutely right. It is. That's what it is. Ultimately, isn't it? That's what it boils down to. But if F1 can arrange something with Sky that benefits both, then why not? I mean, surely if people watch that race and it's their first time watching, or they're newer fans, maybe they'll think, well, hang on a minute, I want to watch some more races. When's the next one? Oh, Bahrain next year. I'll pay for Now TV for that weekend, or I'll pay for that race, or I'll subscribe for the year on F1 TV, or whatever. I know F1 TV is not available here, but it might be somewhere else in the world. But yeah, it's just a shame that it's not something they can look at. They might have looked at it, but I absolutely do not expect.
You okay?
Yep. Breaking. Whoa. Hang on a second. I just need to check something first. Decision from the stewards regarding Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. So, the session was obviously the race. Fact, as they've put it, car 33 braked in a manner which caused a collision with car 44 in turn 26, and they've called it a breach of Article 2E, Chapter 4, Appendix L of the FIA International Sporting Code. They've given him 2 penalty points and a 10-second time penalty imposed after the race. I will read you the decision. The stewards heard from the driver of car 33, the driver of car 44, and team representatives, reviewed the video and blah, 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 blah. Determined that the driver of car 33 was predominantly at fault. They've looked at telemetry as well. At turn 21, the driver of car 33 was given the instruction to give back a position to car 44 and was told by the team to do so strategically. Car 33 slowed significantly at turn 26. However, it was obvious that neither driver wanted to take the lead prior to DRS detection light 3. Cheeky. The driver of car 33 stated that he was wondering why car 44 had not overtaken. And the driver of car 44, Hamilton, if you're not sure, stated that not having been aware at that stage that car 33 was given a position back, was unaware of the reason for car 33 slowing. In deciding to penalise the driver of car 33, the key point for the stewards was that the driver of car 33 then braked suddenly, 69 bar, and significantly, resulting in a 2.4 G deceleration. Whilst accepting that Hamilton could have overtaken Verstappen when the car was first slowed, we understand why he and the driver of Verstappen did not wish to be the first across the DRS line. However, the sudden braking by the driver of Verstappen was determined by the stewards to be erratic and hence the predominant cause of the collision, and hence the steward penalty of 10 seconds for this type of incident. But before Verstappen fans have a massive panic, he was 11.8 seconds clear of Valtteri Bottas. So he stays P2. That'll do. I'll take that, Dan. It'll do. It's not going to have any impact on the championship. I will just double check that maths in case I'm completely wrong. But I believe that is it, and he stays second place. Motorsport.com just tweeting, stewards have given Max Verstappen a 10-second penalty for causing collision. He keeps second place, so no change in the results or points. You could talk for a second, Dan. I've just gone through all that. You know how crap those decisions are by the FIA. I hate reading them documents. Car 33, car 44.
I mean, that's interesting they've came to a decision. I mean, they've taken their time, but that's nothing new. So obviously they've seen the data and decided a penalty is worthy, and it just so happens that 10 seconds is a perfect amount. And I will say
I
as
love
well,
the way you worded that.
yeah, it's just, that is quite interesting. But I believe that's the penalty Sebastian Vettel got in Baku 2017. So that I think that is
got a drive through, didn't he?
Check.
No, he got a stop-go penalty. Vettel did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Did he not get 10 seconds?
No, I'm sure he got a stop-go penalty.
Oh, well.
I'm going to Google that while you're talking. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah. Oh, no, don't let me talk it. I'll get another thing wrong then. But either way, it's quite a harsh penalty. I think the worst penalty apart from that would have been a grid penalty, which there's no way they would have done that with the championship on the line. And the other one would have been disqualification. And obviously, from their data, they've seen that was certainly not worthy of a disqualification or black flag. So 10 second, 5 seconds doesn't really make much difference. I think 2 penalty points is quite telling. I think he's one of the drivers that's got a couple more than most of the grid. So that could be interesting going into next season. And if anything, hopefully it doesn't, but if anything happens next weekend, that could rack up for next time out when we're in 2022. But yeah, 10 seconds doesn't change anything. Hopefully, I'm not looking at the chat right now, but hopefully this is best of both worlds for everyone here.
Joseph Hines, completely in my head, said they needed to do something, so this nothing penalty works perfectly. It kind of does, doesn't it? They've addressed it. they've penalised what they see as an offence, but it's not changed the race result and it's not affected the result of the championship. I was going to say this earlier, actually, but I wanted to wait for this decision. I do feel like the FIA, because I didn't want to tempt fate, because Verstappen fans would have hated me. They probably do anyway, but whatever. I do feel like the FIA are very reluctant to get involved in this championship fight. And that's how I felt today with race control. They just did not want to make a decision that had an impact on the championship. As it turned out, they did, because they gave him a 5-second penalty in the race. But as it turns out, Verstappen's tyres were going off at the end anyway, so probably even without the penalty, would have fallen behind Hamilton anyway, because Hamilton's tyres were better because they were the harder compound and lasting longer. So I think that's a decision they've taken to, as I've forgotten your name, I'm sorry, as whoever that was in chat just said there, it's a decision without changing the race. But what I do, and it was a 10-second, by the way, 10-second stop go, Dan, for Vettel in Baku right. 2017. But I've seen them before where they've given the equivalent of a 10-second stop go penalty after a race, where they've given like a 20 or 25-second penalty to account for the pit lane. So they obviously don't see this, and I've read that, they obviously don't see this as a brake test. They are saying that he was predominantly to blame, was predominantly at fault, and that he did brake excessively, but they're not saying it was a brake test, whereas the Vettel one was very much a slam on the brakes, wasn't it? It was a slam into the side, sorry, that's what I mean. Driving side after Hamilton had kind of backed off onto the safety car, so that was a more slam dunk. He's actually turned the wheel and turned into Hamilton, whereas this one, you could argue either way. So I think that's probably a sensible decision, and it gives us our big title showdown. Whoever finishes in front is champion. Hamilton only needs 10th place, with Verstappen failing to score to win the title. Verstappen doesn't even need to score. Neither does if Hamilton doesn't score. He's got the title. If Hamilton crashes out, Verstappen can pop off home. He's done. It's all his. So, yeah, I think that's a sensible one. I know Hamilton fans will be cross. I totally get it. I'm like you, kind of avoiding chat, although chat's been all right tonight. It's not been too bad. The odd person. But yeah, 2 penalty points, by the way, does take to a total of 7 for the 12-month period. So he's got a little bit of leeway, Dan, for now. I don't know when the next ones are off, but they could be before the first race of next season. So I don't think there's much to say on that one. I'll be honest, I was expecting something massively controversial.
Yes,
and it's not come through. So I must say, thanks, guys. Thanks, FIA stewards. I didn't fancy that one again. Absolutely no way. So it doesn't change anything to race. It just means that, well, it does. It does. In the paperwork, Verstappen is now 21.8 seconds behind Hamilton instead of 11.8 seconds, and only just beat Bottas to P2. I tell you what, it's a good job. Yeah, I know this is such a stupid thing to say because the race was 50 laps. Why would it be a lap longer? But if one of those virtual safety cars was half a lap shorter, Bottas was nearly 1.4 seconds quicker than Verstappen on that final lap. If that one of those virtual safety car periods was slightly shorter, or there was an extra lap, Verstappen's probably third because those tyres had gone off. That's, yeah.
Fourth, because Ocon was right with Bottas.
Of course, yeah, Ocon, yeah. Wow. Oh, fine margins. It just sums up this season beautifully, Dan, doesn't it? Fine margins. Take a couple of comments in that from chat. We've got something from Emily on a super chat. Thank you very much. There's a quid for each penalty point for Max. Thank you very much. Gussie didn't get 1,000 now. Damn. Thanks, Emily. Really appreciate that. Thanks as well to Max Calder. I don't know if I read this one out when it came through. I did spot it, but forgot to mention it. It says controversy. 2021 to AT. So let's see what you guys are saying. George says Toto's headphones for 2 penalty points. That was quite the reaction. Wasn't it? Kind of rivaling Jos Verstappen's reaction after qualify yesterday. Southern Realist says 10 plus 5 equals 10. No, but the 5-second penalty was applied on the result before the result was published, and then it's the 10 seconds on top of that. So he was 11.8 behind, and then you put your 10 seconds on top, which is 10 because the 5's already been taken off. So, yeah, he was 11.8 minus 5 behind Hamilton, then you plus the 5 on, and then you plus the 10 on. It's 10 to 11 in the UK. I can't maths. I can't maths at 8 o'clock in the morning. I certainly can't maths now. No way. Why doesn't Bottas get a penalty after race for slowing down behind a safety car? That's from Rick. We did briefly talk about it earlier, but all we can assume, because we've seen no information, is that it was his lap time was within the certain delta and he's not slowed down excessively. But we both agree we're very surprised that wasn't investigated, because he did slow a lot. Let's be honest, that was a big gap. Care to take a bet that race in Abu Dhabi will be even worse and dirtier than this? Says Nuke Dukem. I don't think it will be. I think there's going to be elbows out. I think it's going to get scrappy, but I don't think it'll be quite the mess that this weekend was. Although I'm looking forward to seeing the track changes and whether they'll make any difference, but we'll see. You're looking forward to that. I know you're one of the few fans of Abu Dhabi.
You're about to say big fan.
You're one of the few fans of Abu Dhabi. That's what I was going to word it as. Are you looking forward to seeing the changes in action? Because I think they are going to make quite a difference, particularly what was turn 7 but is now turn 5, with that big hairpin, get rid of that stupid bloody chicane early in the lap and just running into that and onto the long straight. That would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I would go with defender of Abu Dhabi as a track rather than big fan. But I suppose compared to most people, I'm more of a fan. I think the changes are needed. As much, I don't think it's a terrible track. I think the changes are going to make it better. I think following's normally been an issue at this track, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's still an issue. 2 DRS zones, it might become a bit of a procession, but I think the fight for the title, the fight at the front, is going to be as good as ever. This is a season that we had a great race in Paul Ricard. I know that was a long time ago, but that did happen. So I'm not worried about the fight at the front. Will it be argy-bargy? Possibly, probably, but there's plenty of runoffs here. It's not like your Monzas or Silverstone where there's gravel. There's not really too many super high-speed corners, so if we do have a coming together, still wouldn't surprise me if both drivers kept on going and tried to fight their way back through the field. And there's plenty of room. There is room for them to go side by side through multiple corners, for them to sometimes run a bit wide, sometimes cut a corner and get back on. So I'm thinking it's going to be a good little venue for the finale. Of course, it's no Spa, no Silverstone, no Monza, but I think with the changes, it's going to be, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, it's going to be quite good. Not that we need it, though, because I think the title fight, wherever he went for the last race, is going to be brilliant.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. Again, it's so nice not having to stress about it. My driver's not even in F1. And my hero, if you like, bless him, is retired and not great. So I don't have to stress about it. I could sit back and enjoy it and then just occasionally check Twitter and just be like, watching it explode. I'm evil, I can't help it. Great point from Rooza Roos. We were just talking about, had the virtual safety car been a bit shorter, or had we had another lap that could have cost Verstappen. Says, so the Bottas lock-up on the second restart lost the 1-2 finish for the team. So much happened during the race that Bottas is getting a pass on that one. It's a great shout. The lock-up into turn 1, that would have cost him a hell of a lot of time. Without that, he wouldn't have fallen back into traffic. Probably would have been a 1-2 today for Mercedes. So if we're going to talk about what ifs, I think Rooza Roos there has got the best what if of the lot in many ways. Very lucky, or well driven by Bottas not to go into the back of Verstappen. Probably the way to put it, rather than lucky. It was close. Perez also, actually, I forgot to mention that earlier. Yeah. He's the back of his teammate at the start, didn't he? That was, I bet Perez there was just visualising his P45 as he headed towards Verstappen locked up.
Yeah, both lucky, I think. That's an interesting one on Bottas. I still think he'd get caught. He still would have got caught up in that Hamilton and Max fighting and squabbling in front. But so many what ifs today. Too many to count, to be honest.
Yeah, way too many. But hey, we get one of these every now and again. It just feels like this was bloody ridiculous for the most part. I've no idea what to say about this race other than let's not come back for a while. But then we're doing it in 2 races time. So there you go. Before we wrap things up, Dan, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to maybe put you on the spot a bit here, say about obviously Sir Frank Williams this week. Really sad, passing away this time last week, wasn't it? Last Sunday. I sort of said my bit in the preview. It's sad because he's been a part of Formula One for so long. Obviously, all the years I've been watching, obviously all the years you've been watching, we're never going to see the like again. some of the drivers he's worked with, the achievements, despite being on a shoestring budget, and just what an absolute... I keep saying pioneer and legend, and I know they're words that get thrown around a lot in sports, but he absolutely was, and he's going to be so sorely missed, but I can't, and I hope that he never ever gets forgotten in the same way that people still talk about the likes of Enzo Ferrari and many other people through Formula One history. Frank Williams has got to be up there as somebody that is always remembered for everything he did for not only his own team, but for the sport as a whole. I mean, such a huge loss, but obviously these things happen. He's fought through his own personal adversities as well, and he's gone to the age of 79. He's kept fighting, and I think that's incredibly admirable. Kind of gutting, because he was such a racer, that he didn't get to see the finale of this incredible season, because I bet he's loved it, what he's seen of it. So, you know, that's sad as well. But just an absolute bloody legend, mate. I can't think of any words other than just such a guy. Just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's one of those really, really horrible ones, because I don't think I've ever heard a bad word about Sir Frank Williams. Seems like a lovely, lovely man. One of those guys that you just wish you would have met in Formula One. I was never lucky enough to see Williams in their prime, in their heyday. I've only really witnessed one Williams victory, but still, he was always there at the track, always seemed to be so interested, no matter how well the team were doing. And yeah, I think you're right by saying a pioneer, someone who you wanted to be seen as one of those guys that really embody what Formula One is, that wants to see real races like your Hamiltons, like your Verstappens, but wants to really work for it. Doesn't want to do any backdoor deals, just wants to do proper and the right way. And I think Formula One nowadays still needs people like Sir Frank Williams. Last year, having to finally give up the team wasn't nice, and I think that's sad in a way that this has happened now, and they've had a year and a half of lots of struggles, and next year could be a big change for them. And I really hope it is a swing in the other direction. But you're right, he lived a long life, a great life, and again was loved by seemingly everyone. So it's a really horrible one to take, and I think a lot of people in Formula One who knew him, who didn't know him, it's going to take a while to get used to, but what a lovely, lovely man, and he'll certainly be missed.
Absolutely. Obviously thoughts with his family as well, of course. Just an incredible man. And you said there you did get to see Williams at their height. For all the respect I've got for Sir Frank Williams, there was once upon a time for me as a Schumacher Ferrari fan that he was the enemy. Him and his team were the enemy. So, but even through all of that, the respect I had for him was same in many ways with Ron Dennis, just the respect you have for team bosses, but certainly for Sir Frank, building that team from nothing to what it is now, second most successful team in F1 history. Quite incredible, really. So yeah, greatly missed, as I'm sure he is for everybody. And then just saw in chat there, I think it was MKL, just saying everyone should watch the 2017 Williams documentary. Amazing film, just rewatched it in tribute. Highly recommend that one. It's emotional, but it's a really good documentary, so well worth a watch if you haven't seen it. So yeah, rest in peace to Frank. It's not be the same without him. It won't be the same without him in Formula One. Thank you as well to Lyle Bailey for your super chat. Says great stream. Thank you very much, mate. We are going to wrap it up there now. And if you are just tuning in, by the way, Verstappen was given a penalty, but it's a 10-second time penalty. He was found predominantly at fault for the incident, braking a little bit too hard. Was it a 2 point? I've lost the thing now. 2 point something, wasn't it? G brake thingy. That's the technical term. Forgive me. So yeah, 10-second penalty, but it doesn't change the results. He still finishes in second place. So yeah, we go to Abu Dhabi level. That's it then, Dan. We'll wrap it up, mate. I know it's late. Sorry it's late. I know you don't like the later streams, but kind of couldn't avoid it today. Not my fault for a change, which is lovely. Abu Dhabi next. Are you just a little bit hyped for that one? I know it might be difficult for you to watch it, but yeah.
Very excited. I think if anyone says they're not, they're lying. This is... I can't even put into words what a year it's been for Formula One. I mean, even just coming off of last season and what a bizarre year that was, to get a season like we've had this year before a big regulation change. No one was expecting this, and to have two drivers at the peak of their powers, one race to decide it all. Yeah, I cannot wait. And that's a serious cannot wait. I know I normally say that for races like Paul Ricard, but this time I generally cannot wait.
It's going to be mad. And I just saw somebody in chat there say, there it is, George saying next week's stream will be carnage. Whatever happens, next week's stream is going to be horrible. So I bet you're glad you're not here for that one. You can avoid it. We're gonna have one annoyed fan base, whatever happens. So yeah, you say that if anybody says they're not looking forward to it, they're lying. But I bet there are two very sweaty, nervous fan bases right now going into next week. But I'm loving this. It's such a great season. Thank you very much, mate. I think that's your last race reaction of the season then. So we'll have to get you on again over the winter at some point. We'll have a waffle about probably driver transfers. It's what we like to do. But it's been a pleasure this year, mate. Thank you for all your help on these streams, somehow trying to keep me in check where you can. And I appreciate all the Grosjean and Van Dorn banter, as always. Another year in the book, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. I'm not going to lie. It's been a little bit more difficult this year with no Roman. Still haven't found the driver to replace him. I think you're likewise with Van Dorn, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to keep this going for another year. I think we can milk this for a while longer. But yeah, last one. It's been another lovely season, mate. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure you boys are going to have a lovely time after that last race, no matter what happens.
I'm so nervous. Well, let's be fair. I thought today was going to be worse than it was. So, like I said, there was a few people that were like that, but you just ignore them. But yeah, thank you very much, mate. And I'll let you get off because it's getting late. So I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Cheers, man. Thanks, chat. Thanks for a lovely year. See you later.
Thank you to Dan, and thank you to all of you guys as well for tuning in. Thank you for your super chats. Always appreciated as ever. So next up, it is Abu Dhabi. And a title deciding, it's all I've wanted for so long. I'm so excited. A title deciding Abu Dhabi, two different drivers, two different teams going into the final race, level on points. Assuming they finish in the points, just enjoy this moment. Whoever finishes in front will be the 2021 Formula One World Champion. Could be a first for Max or an eighth for Lewis Hamilton. It's going to be fantastic. And if you are a Hamilton or Verstappen fan, try and get some sleep. It's going to be a rough week, but try and enjoy as well that final race. It's going to be stressful, I'd imagine, but I can't wait. And I'm sure many of you can't as well. Let me know in chat before you go who you think it's going to be, Max or Lewis. Please do drop a like as well before you disappear. And if you are new, don't forget to subscribe. I'm back with the preview on Thursday. And of course, the race reaction as well next week. I might do a couple of other bits as well. Maybe a couple of extra live streams next week just around the sessions because it's going to be a little bit of a tense one. But we'll see how we get on as we get closer to the weekend. You can follow me on social media as well. All of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. After that one, I'm off for a lie down. Until next time, goodbye.